the new year, and I don't feel any different. The clanking of crystal, explosions off in the distance, in the distance. So this is the new year, and I have no resolution. For self-assigned patterns, for problems with easy solutions. Everybody put your best suit or dress on. Let's make believe that we are wealthy for just this once. Lighting firecrackers off on the front lawn. With sturdy dialogues bleeding to us. I wish the world were flat like the old days, so I could take a trip by folding the map. No more airplanes or speed trains or freeways. There'd be no distance that could hold us back. There'd be no distance that could hold us back. There'd be no distance that could hold us back. There'd be no distance that could hold us back. So this is the new year, so this is the new year, so this is the new year, oh this is the new year.
So, this is the new year. Happy New Year. Oh, come on, say it like you mean it. That's better. We're so glad you're here and also online. We thought that was a great way to kick off this service and also this series, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But I don't know how you feel about the new year. I find people are very hot or cold about it. Some of you, you go crazy, you go to a party, you get dressed up, you do a toast at midnight, you kiss that special person at midnight, you watch the ball drop, and other people just yawn. It's like it's just another day. I don't get all the fuss. I'm going to wake up tomorrow in the same house with the same people in the same broken down car, and all the bills are still there. Like, what's the big deal about the new year? But I'm going to confess to you that I'm someone that has for decades loved New Year's Eve, loved New Year's Day, the whole idea of new, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute in the message. But hopefully today, if you're not excited about it, we can get you excited about it, and you can find reason to have great hope today. So one of the things I want to do is just take a moment to share with you a couple great opportunities that are coming up. If you hear the words Hope Water Project, and you've been around for a while at Kensington, you know right away you think about lacing up the running shoes and running a 5K or even a marathon to raise money to drill a well in Kenya for the Pokot people, who are nomadic people always in search of water. This is one of the most phenomenal things that we have done as a church over almost 2 decades now, is we have drilled so many wells there. And as soon as you drill a well, here's what happens. They stop traveling around and they settle. And there's a permanence that's there, which allows them to build schools so they can teach their kids, in a hospital or medical clinic. And everything starts to change, and they build faith communities, and it really changes lives and changes them, their culture. So we've been using water as an opportunity to express love and to help them get the life that God has for them. So we raise money through running. But this January, on the 21st, we're going to raise money a little bit different. we're going to have our first gala. It's going to be at our Orion campus. And Steve Andrews, who's the founding pastor of Kensington, and Craig McGlasson, who is the Orion campus pastor, are going to be sharing vision. They've spent a lot of time in Kenya. They're going to talk about their stories. During the meal, we're going to have music from Hope Detroit and also from our Kaleo kids as well. And it's just going to be a night of great vision. So instead of running shoes, you get out your dress shoes, you polish them up, you put on your nice clothes, you come for a great cause. So there's information, as you can see on the screen. You can go online and you can sign up and just RSVP to be a part of that super night in just a few weeks. So we hope you'll do that. Also, new year, new beginnings, new opportunities. We would really encourage you to pay attention the next couple of weeks because we're going to be launching all of our winter groups. You know, of the many goals that people set for New Year's, often there is a spiritual goal in there. I want to get closer to God. I want to learn the Bible. I want to learn more about God. And so we have opportunities here at our campus. You can see on the screen all the various kinds of groups that we have that are studying the Bible together. It's also a great way to make friends and build community together. So please pay attention and let's jump in the new year and get closer to God. The other way to get involved at Kensington and to get to know people, though, is through serving. And as our church, of course, how many times over the last year have I said as things begin to open up and then they close down again? But we believe as we get through the winter months that things will begin to ease again. And we just need people to help us do what we do here. So you can be an usher, a greeter. You can work with our K-Kids. You can work with our student ministries. You can work in production. You can run one of these cameras or work in our soundboard in the back or back with video. Or you can be on stage if you have those gifts. So please take advantage of the opportunity to serve. And one of the great side benefits of this is that you get to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise meet. So go to the hub after. It's the big orange center of our lobby. That's where you can get information, or you can go online to our website and just write volunteer, and it'll give you all kinds of information about what you can do. Now, our volunteering is not just limited to what we do here in this building. We really serve our community, unlike almost any church I've ever been in, through our Move Out networks. And so we would also encourage you to consider in 2022 to give your life away to our community. One of the things we do right here every Thursday is Forgotten Harvest, where we provide food for people that are in food insecurity. We work with McCrest and the homeless. We do so many things in our community. So please consider in 2022 taking advantage of the many opportunities to roll up your sleeves and get involved in our community and to serve our neighbors and to love them. So in just a moment, I'm going to have you stand and greet those around you, but I want to let you know, especially those of you at home, that we're going to be taking communion later on in the service. Everybody get the little cups when you came in? If not, during a song or something, you can go back and grab one. But at home, we encourage you during the commercial that's going to come in just a moment, as we greet each other here, to go up into your kitchen, grab some juice, a cracker, a piece of bread, something, because we would love for you to participate with us in communion. So, okay? So the assignment now, and by the way, I figured between COVID and snow that we would have lighter attendance today, and that was true. So those of you in the back, unless you're back there for a reason, I would love to see your faces. You can come up and fill in some of these other spaces up front. But no obligation, your choice. But right now, would you please stand and say hi to people around you?
It's time to step into where I feel called. I see nothing but fog, a cloud of uncertainty. Are you really sure it just takes faith? Can someone tell me which way to get to my destiny? Give me a sign, 'cause I need to hear your voice. I need to feel much closer to your heart. Give me a sign, 'Cause without you I'm so lost. You're the compass of my life. Won't you lead me home? Here comes another dead end, and I can sense I'm meant for more. Can someone show me to the detour? 'Cause I'm just trying to find what's mine, but I can't seem to find which way is meant for me. Oh, give me a sign, 'cause I need to hear your voice. I need to feel much closer to your heart. Give me a sign, 'cause without you I'm so lost. You're the compass of my life. Won't you lead me home? Please lead me home. Please lead me home. Oh, please lead me home. Please lead me home. Yeah. Won't you give me a sign? 'Cause I need to hear your voice. I need to feel much closer to your heart. Won't you give me a sign? 'Cause without you I'm so lost. You're the compass of my life. Won't you lead me home? Please lead me home.
Man, thank you so much, Aaron and Dale. That was beautiful. That's an original song that Aaron wrote, and it's so appropriate for what we're looking at today because the words talk about, it's really a prayer. And as we think about life and the uncertainties and the things that are going to come we don't know about, the only thing that is certain is things are going to change, right? And so how do we navigate that? And so it was a prayer asking God, for a sign, will you be my compass? Will you direct me? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. As I said, by the way, I just love New Year's. I always have. It's like I'm a little kid every year. New Year's Eve, I've been planning what I'm going to kind of goals for the next year, assessing last year what I could have done better. And I get all this joy and hopefulness and anticipation about the new year. And over the years, I've set some goals. I've given up on the physical ones, though, by the way. I used to pride myself that I could get out of bed, shower, and out the door in 20 minutes. Now, this look today, I started on Wednesday. This is as good as it gets right here, okay? There's just too much to take care of. So I've kind of gotten rid of those. But I do some spiritual goals every year, and I'm going to share the one I have for this year because if you're I don't do resolutions kind of person, I'm going to try to talk you by the end of my message today into adopting a resolution for this year with me. But I did a fun one this year. And the fun one is that I'm going to learn a new word every week. So by the end of the year, 52 new words. And this has to be a word I've never heard before. I have to look it up in the dictionary. I got to get the definition. And then the challenging part is I have to actually use it. Not in a way to show off, but just use it in a conversation. Okay, so I'm going to get 52 new words this year. Would you like to hear my first one? All right, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Some of you will know this. Most of you will not. Defenestrate. How many, don't say it, but how many know what the word means? First service, there wasn't one. See, I thought you guys were more educated than the first service crowd, okay? Don't tell them I said that. All right, here's what it means. I'm not making this up. This is really true. To throw someone out a window. I'm not lying. You can look it up later. Right now, you can get your phone out and look it up. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. When I discovered this word, I thought, what in the world was going on at some time in the past where they had to come up with a word like that? People were just throwing people out windows? Seriously? Can you imagine that? And they got tired of actually saying the whole sentence, so they came up with a word. So instead of saying, hey, what's Earl doing? Oh, he's throwing someone out the window. They could say, hey, what's Earl doing? Defenestrating. See how much easier that was? So I decided, since this was my first word, I have to use it now, or it doesn't count. So if any of you, I know it's a long partying weekend, you're tired. If I see anyone fall asleep, I'm going to defenestrate you. Except there's no windows in here, so that's not going to work. I also decided, in light of that first word, that I am going to add on another resolution. I'm going to share it right now for the very first time. I resolve that I will not defenestrate anyone this year. That's one I think I can probably keep, especially since in New York I live on the third floor. So throwing out a window would be a pretty serious thing to do to somebody. So anyhow, I'm just going to have some fun with that. But as I said, I really mean it when I say I like the new year, because I like to assess the last year and see the good and the bad, and where I see God active and alive in my life and where I could have done better. And to also believe with hope, because of what God has promised to us, that this year can be different. I can be different. I can be better, not to win God's love or favor, but because he loves me and he's involved in my life, that this year can be different. And so I do set some goals for every year, because I believe that life is about change. And I'm expectant that the next 363 days that we have this year, it can be an adventure with God. Because whether you like New Year's or not, we all get it. And every single one of us, if we had a book that represented the year, there's a page and a little bit filled in so far, but look at all those blank pages. I want you to try to picture the blank pages of your life that are ahead of you right now. What kind of story are you going to write? What kind of story do you want to write? And while there's great anticipation, though, if we're honest, there's also a fair amount of fear or anxiety, isn't there? Yep. There's an honest person, or at least one that was willing to say it out loud. Because that's the nature of life. Right now, some of you are facing a medical issue that's not fully diagnosed yet or resolved, or treatment that's coming. Some of you are looking at your job, or you don't have a job. Finances, it's been challenging. Relationships. And then there's all the things that we don't know are going to happen. And if you rest in that thought long enough, you can really work yourself up into anxiety. So the truth is, while there's great promise and hope ahead, there also is peril. And what is it going to be like for us to navigate that? How are we going to manage 2022? And what has God said to us? And so today we're going to begin a series, as I said. It's on the life of Moses. It's called A Journey to Remember. We're going to take 4 weeks. Moses was in the Old Testament, the second book, Exodus. He's the one that led the people out of Egypt into the promised land, or toward the promised land. We're going to look at his life to see what we can learn. And the one chapter that we're going to look at today, mainly in Exodus 33, is really very helpful for facing the new year and thinking about what might lie ahead for us and where is God in all of that. But before I begin there, I want to rewind a little bit earlier in the Bible to the first book, Genesis, and talk about a man named Abram, whose name was changed later by God to Abraham. But this tells us right away, this very first story, it's in Genesis 12, gives us a little clue into how God actually wants to operate in our lives. And it's pretty challenging, especially for me, it's been challenging. So God comes to Abram and says this: "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land," now catch these words, "to the land I will show you." I will show you. You get what's going on here? Adam, I want you to leave everybody you know, everybody that's familiar, your land, your people, your culture, to a place that I'm going to show you. How does that strike you? It's called faith, okay? I don't want to do that. And here's the astonishing thing. Here's how Abraham responds. Abraham responds. A couple verses later, it says, "So Abram went." He went. Really? I would go if I got a few questions answered. This is the conversation that Craig's going to have with God in that moment. All right, can you tell me where we're going? What's the name of the place? How long is it going to take me to get there? Will I like it there? What's the weather like? What's the cost of living? How do people live? Do they speak my language? Like, I have a whole host of questions. God, I'm willing to go anywhere that you want to send me. But tell me where you're going to send me first. And tell me what it's going to be like. When I was a little boy, I was at a church camp, and I went forward in a service, and I gave my life to God, and I wrote my grandma from camp a postcard, and I still have that postcard from many, many, many years ago. And in it, I said, I told God I'd go anywhere he wanted me to go. But the reality is, as I look at how I've lived my life, I've struggled to actually do it unless I have some certainties. And here Abraham is. He comes home, he rents the U-Haul, attaches it to his camel, and loads everything he knows in it. And his neighbors had to be coming out saying, where are you going? He's saying, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You're going somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to a place that God's going to show me. Like, that's really crazy stuff. But it's in the very early chapters of the Bible, and perhaps there's something in that for us as we look ahead into the unknown in terms of how God wants to work in our lives. Because as the gentleman yelled out a few minutes ago, there's an element of faith in this. So we're going to jump now into Moses. Before we do that, we're going to take a moment to receive our offering today, and then we're going to jump into the story of Moses. So again, thank you so much, especially those that gave to the year-end giving that we were sharing with you every week. It was a phenomenal response. We thank you so much for your generosity. Every week we offer an offering, not because we want your money, but we want you to join with us in the work that God is doing in our community and around the world. So you can see all the ways we make it easy to give. You can leave a check on your way out, or you can give through our app or through our website or by texting that number. So again, thank you for your partnership with us and for your generosity. So Moses. So we have to forward now from Abraham. So Abraham goes to this place. God shows him where to settle. They're doing well. Abraham has a son named Isaac and Jacob's name got changed to Israel. So the nation Israel came from that lineage. And after many years, a famine hit the land, and the only place to get food was Egypt. So they went to Egypt to get food, and they ended up being there 430 years in slavery, captive by the Egyptians, building their pyramids for them. And so it was a pretty awful and difficult time and experience that they went through. And after they cried out to God, finally he sent someone to deliver them, and that person's name was Moses. Moses goes to Pharaoh, confronts him, the plagues come, 10 plagues, and eventually after Passover, the day comes when they're liberated, and Pharaoh says, you can go. And so Moses leads them out of Egypt, across the Red Sea as it parted for them, and now into the wilderness. And that's where we pick up the story. Now, the same thing happened to Moses that happened to Abram. He did not give him a map. By the way, I like maps. We have GPS today. Actually, I like GPS a lot, but I've always liked maps, and the reason I like maps is when you have a map, you're in control. Because you look at where you are, you're leaving from here, you can see where you're going, you can plan the route out. I remember an experience years ago, before GPS. You guys, some of you remember before GPS? Okay. Where you actually had to use a map, and I was at a wedding, and we were going to go to a reception, and I left the church, and I went out to my car and realized that I forgot to get a map. And I don't know where the reception is. And so I had a friend, we didn't come together, but I saw him get into his car, so I went over there and I said, hey, do you have an extra map? And he goes, no, I'm sorry, I don't, but just follow me. And you know what I said to him? No, I need a map. So I went back into the church and rummaged around and asked people, and finally was able to get a map. And so I got out of my car and I drove to the reception. When I got there, my friend said, what in the world is wrong with you? Like, how hard is it to follow me? You couldn't follow me. You had to go in and get a map. Why would you do that? And he just kind of jokingly asked the question. And then I sat there, and as I was cutting my steak and eating wedding cake, I actually began to ask, what was that about? That I would go back into the church to find, ask around to get a map, or instead of just following my friend. Because, following is kind of easy, isn't it? You don't have to make decisions. He goes left, I go left. He goes right, I go right. He turns here, I turn there. So why in the world did I not follow him? Why did I want my own map? And the reason is this, I believe, as I thought about it. I like being in control. And if I have my own map, I'm in control. What if I want to go faster or slower? What if I want to stop and get some gas or get a cup of coffee? Or what if we get separated? So I want my own map. I want to be in control. I don't know if any of you are wired that way, but I think it is kind of common in human nature that we want to be in control. And so this business of following can be difficult. Well, Abraham had to follow God to a place he would show him. And now here Moses is out in the wilderness taking them to some promised land, but he did not give them a map. And so how is he going to get to the right place? Well, here we pick up the story in Exodus 13. This is how it worked. By day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they would travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. So just like the guy in the parking lot was saying to me, I said, I don't know where the reception is. He said, just follow me. Moses must have been saying to God, where do I go? And he was saying, just follow me. And I'm going to give you a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night so you can't mistake where we're going. Just follow me. Just follow me. It's not hard. And so they did. They followed him. And then a little bit later in the story, Moses said to the Lord, this is in chapter 33, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You have said, God has said to Moses, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your ways so I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. And then here's the key. The Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. I want you just to sit in that last statement for a moment as you think about 2022. Moses said, essentially, my paraphrase, if you don't go, we're not going. We're going to stay right here. We don't know the way. We don't know what's coming. We don't know where the dangers are. We don't know when to go left or right. And so if you don't move, we're not moving. So I want you to think about that in the context of your life this next year. And we're going to work eventually to a resolution. But what if our posture of our heart before God was the same that we saw in Moses? If you don't go, we're not going. We're only going where you're going. Now, I have wished many times in my life for something as clear as a cloud or a pillar of fire. Have you ever said, if God would just write it in the sky, I'd do it? Send me a text, God, an email. You know, it feels like even though in our hearts we want to follow God, it's not always easy to know how he's leading us and what to do. And that's very important. We're going to come to that in just a little bit. But I want you to stay in the moment right now of asking yourself, am I a map person? Or am I a person who's willing to follow someone? Do I like to be in control, or am I willing to give up control? Now, GPS has changed everything when it comes to getting directions. Because now we just plug in an address, and then we sit back and listen or watch. And the voice tells us. Initially, it was only a woman's voice you could listen to, by the way. They finally changed that. First GPS I had was a woman, and I wrongly made a joke to my wife one time. Now I have two women telling me where to turn. She didn't think it was very funny. I'm glad you're laughing. And I think she's watching online right now, so if I never apologize, please, I apologize for that. But it tells you where to go and where to turn, and it also tells you where you are. See, that's one thing a map doesn't do. It doesn't tell you where you are. You know, you go into a mall and you're looking for a certain store, and you find the kiosk that has the map. What is the first thing you look for? You are here. And then you go, oh, I got to get here. Now I can chart the course. Well, GPS tells you where you are, tells you the destination. You just have to listen and follow. You're not going to get lost. And if you do get lost, what does it do? Rerouting, right? It's just like genius. So to illustrate this in real life story, I want to share a story. It's a pretty long story, so I'm just going to warn you of something that happened to me this summer. And it was a story, and I stayed with Joe and Cappy Graney. I told them, but I said, I'm never going to tell anybody else this story because I'm so embarrassed of what an idiot I was. But now I'm telling all of you because as I was preparing this message, I felt like God was saying, yeah, you need to tell this story to bring this to life. So I'm a sailor. I love to sail. I grew up in the Great Lakes area. I sailed on sailboats. I raced in the Great Lakes. I love being on the water. I love the sound of the waves and the wind in the sails, and I like to get out as far as I can where I can't see shore. I just have a longing and a love for this. It's my number one hobby, which when I moved to New York City 14 years ago, I had to give up. I had a boat. I had to get rid of it. I've only sailed once in New York City harbor area one time in 14 years. So when I came back this year to serve Clinton Township as the interim pastor, and this is my home state, someday I think I will semi-retire here, maybe another 40 years or so it seems like, but so there was a great market for used sailboats, and I started looking online, and I told my wife, and I had her blessing, that if I find the right boat cheap enough, one I can keep on a trailer, but I can also cruise in it, I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to shrink wrap it and just leave it for down the road when I get to spend more time here. So I did that in May. I bought it in Port Sanilac, Michigan, and I got to get it up through the Straits of Mackinac and over to Frankfort, Michigan, where my mom lives. So that was the goal. So I want to tell you what happened. This is an ugly story. It shows what an idiot I am. So the first thing you're going to see is a map of the journey. Start there. I'm going to go all the way up there, 350 miles in the water in a 22-foot sailboat. And my brother Jerry is going to go with me. And so we planned, I had a little window of opportunity where I could do it in kind of late June. And we're going to go. Now, this is late June, so the water temperature in the lake is about 52 or 3 degrees at that time, 54 degrees. So we're going to go on this journey. So I had two guys, by the way, two friends, my two Daves. One is Dave Silver, who works here as our facilities director, sails a Catalina 22 in Lake St. Clair. He's the guy on your left in the plaid shirt. And the other Dave is my wife's cousin's husband. He's done 39 Port Huron to Mackinac races. So he's a real advanced sailor. So I had them go up and sail the boat with me to make sure it was a good boat. And they were good friends. They took a Saturday, went up with me. We took it out on the water, tested the sails, everything. They said, this is a great boat. You're stupid if you don't buy it. You should buy it. It's a great price. And so I bought it. We got it on the trailer. It sat there for a month or so until I could get it back in the water to sail it northern Michigan. So we plan out the trip. My brother Jerry is going to go with me on this trip. That's the next picture of us the day that we left. I did a message here on a Sunday, and then I left church and I went up to Port Sanilac and got on the boat. And Dave Bulla, the experienced Mackinac sailor, had been telling me a couple things. You're not ready to do this trip. You need to do a shakedown cruise first to make sure everything's right, working right. I just don't advise you to do this. And I totally ignored his advice, and we showed up there. And Dave Bulla showed up to launch us off. And I knew I should have known I was in trouble when he had a bunch of gear that he brought out on the dock. He gave me charts. He gave me extra sheets or ropes. He said, you need more anchorage in case you get in trouble. I'm not going to get in any trouble out there. He gave me an emergency radio. I said, I already have a radio. He goes, you better have a backup. That didn't, give me a lot of confidence when this experienced sailor said, basically, here's all this emergency equipment. Good luck. And he walks away. So we get out there, and we get off to a good start. Day one, we get up to the top of the Thumb. Day two, we cross the Saginaw Bay to Harrisville, Michigan. It's now getting dark, and we made a decision that almost ruined my life to let's sail through the night. Let's do one night sail. So as the sun set, we got out on the water. The wind was behind us coming from the south. We got wing and wing, which means a sail on either side. And we're heading up toward what turned out to be the most treacherous part of the trip. Past Alpena, there's a place called Thunder Bay, and there's an island called Thunder Bay Island. You're going to see the chart here because I just want you to see this. And on this chart, you can see right about in the middle, there's the land jets out, and there's an island out there. And so I have charts, which I haven't used in forever. I have a compass, but I don't know where I am. And it got so dark, so look at this. Hand this far in front of me, I can't see it. We're about 5 or 6 miles offshore. The water's cold. By the way, other dumb thing I did, I got a life raft, which I inflated and towed with us for 2 days, and I got so tired of towing it because it slowed us down that I deflated it and put it under the kitchen table down below, which I learned later on doesn't do a lot of good if you're in trouble. Okay, so we're heading out there. It's dark. We're moving pretty fast. There's a big light off of Thunder Bay Island. I know there's shoals out there. I think I'm far enough out. And I'm down below. My brother's on the hill, on the helm. I'm down below, looking at the charts. And I can't even describe to you the force and the sound when we ran aground at full speed in that sailboat. Hit rocks, hit a shoal. It threw me up in the air. I hit my head on the overhead several times as we were bouncing on the shoal. It's so loud that I'm absolutely certain that the boat is breaking apart already. I'm looking down to see water coming in. I'm yelling at my brother. I can't even remember the next 5 minutes what I did, but somehow in all that chaos and in the darkness, we were able to get off the shoal, and we're floating. Now I'm down below, opening up every compartment to see if there's water. I think I'm going to die. I'm looking at my stupid life raft, uninflated, that it takes 20 minutes to inflate if you're on shore with a pump. It's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die out here. The water's cold, hypothermia. I got all these thoughts running through my mind. Heart beating 100 miles an hour. And finally, we settle down and we get our bearings and we head further out into the lake, which seemed like the opposite I wanted to do, but I didn't want to run aground again. So we ended up out there. To make a long story short, rain hits next and then dense fog. We can't see anything. And I got charts that don't do me any good because I don't know where I am. So I went idle speed, turned the tiller all the way, and we did a short circle for 2 hours until the fog lifted. And then we could see shore, and we made our way to shore and got into the harbor. We've been up at that point 20 some hours and just collapsed down below. Got up in the morning, inspected the hole. But here's the reason I'm telling you this long, very long story. When we got up to Mackinac City the next day, and there's other sailors there, and we're kind of sharing stories, and I kind of got a I can beat you story now. And the guy looks at me and he says, "Wait a minute, you're out here without GPS? How are you navigating?" And I said, "Well, for thousands of years they use charts, you know." He goes, "How's that working for you?" Not very good. I said, "But the problem is that cell phone, I lose cell coverage out here, so I have charts that I could use GPS, but I don't have cell coverage." He goes, "Well, there's an app, and it's free, and you can download all these charts, and you don't need cell coverage. And it'll tell you exactly where you are and where the bad stuff is and how to avoid it." So my brother was already sleeping. I went down below, downloaded it. The next day I got up, changed everything. Changed everything. In fact, I want to show you one more slide here. This is on the other side of Mackinac. That's another shoal that sticks way out into Lake Michigan. That little blue thing is my boat. It's in real time. You can see the course. The pink behind is to the north is where I come from. You can see I'm heading right into the shallow waters again. But right at that moment, because of GPS, I just veered a little bit to the west, and I missed it. Genius. Genius. Right, what's this got to do with Moses and pillar of fire and cloud? It's simply this. God is the original GPS. See it all the way back in the book of Exodus. You don't need to know where you are, even Moses. If you have your eyes on me, I'm not going to lead you to a bad place. Just follow the cloud, follow the pillar. But you know where this story got drilled down even deeper for me? Was when I got back from the story. In fact, I got to show you. Here's Frankfort, Michigan. This is the harbor. We arrived safely. That's my mom, who's 88. That's what you should look like when your son almost killed himself out in Lake Huron. So we arrived. You can see I'm smiling. I didn't die. But I will tell you, there was about 5 minutes of the most terror I've had because I was out there on my own, unsure where I was and where I was supposed to be heading. Not a place you want to be. So Dave Bola, back to Dave Bola, the guy that told me you're not ready for this. Turned out Dave was right. Dave was supposed to be here today. He lives in Port Huron, but the weather kept him up in Port Huron. But I know he's watching right now. Dave didn't know how this was going to impact me, but when we sat down about 2 months later, I was embarrassed to tell him the story. "How's the trip, Craig?" "Oh, it was great. We made it in 5 days, 350 miles. I think we set some kind of record. It's great. It's great." But you got to come clean eventually, right? So I sat down with him at the end of the summer, and I told him what happened. And here's what he said to me. He said, I've sailed through that area so many times. If I had been on the boat with you, you would have been nowhere near that shoal. I would have guided you through the treacherous parts of the trip. So what was he? He would have been a guide. So what I'd like you to think about for a moment, thinking about the story of Abraham leaving a place that God would show him, Moses following the pillar in the cloud, is to think about the fact that God does not give any one of us a map, but he gives all of us a guide. And the guide is himself. I look back at that trip and think if Dave had come with me, he would have been on the tiller and he would have been saying, "Craig, you got to go further west. You got to go out further or east. You're heading the wrong direction." And I would have just surrendered control. I would have said, "Dave, you guide us through here because I don't know what I'm doing." And as Dave and I shared this moment, this conversation, I thought, that's really what I need to do with my life. I need to remember that I have someone with me on my boat who knows where the shoals are. He knows where I am. He knows my heading. And if I'm willing to listen to him and keep my eyes on him, he's going to lead me to a good place. We have a guide. We don't have a map. We have a guide. And this, by the way, is what Jesus shared with his followers, and he shares with us this morning through John chapter 10. So now here's the resolution part. I'm going to ask you to consider joining me, because this is the one serious resolution that I wrote down for this year. And I'm going to share 2 passages of Scripture with you that form the resolution for 2022. This will be life-changing if we do this. The first is this: get to know the voice of Jesus. I know his voice. I hear it. I don't hear it all the time. Sometimes I hear it and I don't do what he says. But Jesus made these incredible promises or statements in John 10. With himself as the sheep, or the shepherd, and us as sheep, here's what he says: "My sheep listen to my voice. I call my own sheep by name, Remember back in Moses said, you know me, you know my name, you know me. He said, teach me to know your ways and then to follow you. I'm not going to go if you're not going. Well, Jesus is saying the same thing. He's saying, my sheep listen to my voice. I call my own sheep by name and lead them out. When I have brought out all my own, I go on ahead of them, and my sheep follow me because they know my voice. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. Do you know, if you read the Gospels again and again, the first couple chapters of any gospel and the last couple say the same thing. Jesus' first words to his disciples were two words: follow me. End of John, his last moments with his disciples, same two words: follow me. What God is saying to me in 2022 is follow me. Follow me. Look at the pillar of fire. Look at the cloud. Listen to my voice. But we have to recognize the voice. You know, we have caller ID now, but it used to be before that, if someone that you knew called you and they said, at hello, you knew who it was. If they're a friend, right? They don't have to get two words out, you know who it is. If you're in the lobby today and you hear a voice behind you that's someone you know call your name, you know who they are without even looking at them, because you've become familiar with their voice. And so part of this goal, resolution for 2022 has to be, I want to get better at hearing your voice, recognizing your voice. And I don't want to be the shepherd out front. I want to be the sheep behind you, following you, because I only have to do one thing. I just have to keep my eyes on you. But I have to know your voice. And so part of this resolution has to be for all of us that in our busy lives right now, we're going to determine and resolve to make time every day to be with him in a way that we can get familiar with his voice. That inner voice that we hear, the promptings, the leadings that he gives to us. Because I don't know about you, but I need discernment this year. I need wisdom this year. I need way more than I have within myself. I want to be dependent. I don't want to be in control. I'm going to mess it up if I'm in control. But there is one who's on the boat with me, better than GPS, who says, I can guide you. Just turn it over to me. And so the resolution is to get better at recognizing his voice, and that's only done by spending time with him. It's an investment that will pay huge dividends for all of us if we do this. I can't think of a better resolution than I'm going to get to know God better this year and recognize his voice so he can help me navigate all the things that I'm going to face this year that I don't know I'm going to face. And so the second scripture, maybe another way of saying the same thing, is this. It's from Hebrews chapter 12. It's to fix our eyes on Jesus. I love the encouragement of this verse as I think about it. He says, let us run with perseverance. Maybe we could say run or walk, 2022, with perseverance, the race that is marked out for us. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. You know, if I think back to that moment on the boat, if Dave was on the boat and he's up on the bow and he's looking at where we're going, it's dark, but he knows the light and he knows what's there. And he says, Craig, you need to bear off about 15 degrees to the east. And I said, no, I'm okay, I got it. I kind of like where I'm going. Like, wouldn't that be kind of stupid to do that? I do that with God. I think some of you do that with God. 2022. Opportunity for us, all of us, to lean into this more, to lean into the presence of God, which is always with us, to get to know his voice and trust that voice and trust that that's the best thing to do, even when it doesn't seem to make sense, to follow him, because he promises that he will make a way for us. He is for us. He was with us. And so, God, I pray for this for us. As we look into the unknown, we know you, and it's not unknown to you. As we consider all the opportunities, but also the challenges that will come this year, can we, God, can you help us, God, turn our eyes and our heart to you? You are the author and the perfecter of our faith. Jesus, help us to look to you. Thank you for being the shepherd that leads us. Help us to live this year as the sheep that you love, following you. In your name, amen.
working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. Worship you. Oh, I worship you. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Sing it again, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Split it up and say waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Faithful, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. See, that is who you are. 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 That is who you are.
You could just take your seat again for a moment. We're going to take communion together now. You know, yesterday, the first blank page of the new year, I wrote out kind of my resolution related to what we talked about today. I'm going to go home and edit it today, or add something new in day 2, because the words of that song that just spoke to me now most powerfully were just 3 words: an affirmation. You are here. You believe that? We're singing about him, we're singing to him, but he's here. And guess what? When you leave, he's here with you, there with you. When you're home tonight, when you're at work tomorrow, when you're with family, all 363 and a half days that are ahead of us, he will be here all the time. And he's here to be the way maker, to show us the path, where to go, how to avoid the shoals. He's there to give us the wisdom that we need. He's here. God, you are here. You are here. That's one of the promises that Jesus gave to his disciples before he ascended. Matthew 28, he made the promise. He said, I am with you always, even to the end of the earth. So he's with us always, and that's what we're celebrating right now. Just not too many days before that, he had been with his disciples in the upper room celebrating what was called Passover, one of the Jewish celebrations that signified when God led them out of Egypt. And Moses came and led them away from Pharaoh, away from oppression and slavery and the captivity, through the dry land, through the Red Sea, and in toward the Promised Land. Jesus took that Passover celebration and gave new meaning to it. That's what we hold in our hands right now. He wanted to share this moment with them so they would remember. He said, do this to remember, that we would remember that he is our way maker. He loves us so deeply. And I think the disciples were puzzled when he handed the bread and blood and the cup to them and talked about his body and his blood being broken and shed for them, because here he was in the room. But I promise you, a couple days later, after the resurrection, when they saw Jesus having been crucified and risen from the dead, that they knew so deeply how they were loved. Incredible love, incredible sacrifice for them. And so that's what we do now, as Jesus instructed his disciples and us as well. Let's remember together. So he took the bread, and when he had broken it, he gave it to his closest friends. And he said, this is my body broken for you. Do this to remember. In the same manner, he took the cup and he passed it among his disciples, and he said, this juice, this wine represents the new covenant that I'm making with you, a covenant of love, that I'm with you, I'm for you, that you are forgiven. So let's take this now to remember.
Stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. Never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop. Never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. You never stop working. You never stop working. You never stop. Never stop working. You never stop. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop working. You never stop. You never stop. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God. Is who you are. We say waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God. That is who you are. Yes, that is who you are. 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 Yes, that is who you are. That is who you are. Yeah, that is who you are. That is who you are. So we say, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God. That is who you are. Sing it one more time. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God. That is who you are.
Amen. So as we're in this new series of A Journey to Remember, and we're understanding that God is our way maker and he lights the path and directs us, we wanted to end today with a song. It's a newer song that came out. It's called Egypt, and it talks about how God brought the Israelites out of Egypt. He can bring us out of whatever our Egypt is and lead us in the direction that we should go. And so I just want to encourage you as we sing this, that you jump in and worship with us as we go out celebrating. Understand that God is leading and directing us in the way that we should go.
Forget the wonder of how you brought deliverance, the exodus of my heart. 'Cause you found, you freed me, held back the waters for my release. Oh Yahweh, 'cause you're the God who fights for me, Lord of every victory. Sign that you are with me. The fire by night is the guiding light to my feet. 'Cause you found me, you freed me, held back the waters for my release. Oh Yahweh, 'cause you're the God who fights for me, Lord of every victory. God, I'll sing of all you've done and swallowed up forever by the fury of your love. You stepped into my Egypt and you took me by the hand. You marched me out in freedom into the promised land. Now I will not forget you, God. I'll sing of all you've done and swallowed up forever by the fury of your love. You're the God who fights for me, Lord of every victory. Hallelujah, and hallelujah. You have torn apart the sea, you have led me through the deep. Hallelujah, hallelujah. You're the God who fights for me,
Man, I love that song. That's a new song. I love that song, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's amazing. You know, the story that we're looking at this month of January of Israel in Egypt, is leaving Egypt for the Promised Land. It's not just an ancient story. It's not like God said, I think I'll give them this story and I'm going to take a break for a while and not do any more cool things. No, this is given to us. We know that this is who God is. This is how he operates. This is how he acts. He fights for us. You know, when they got to the Red Sea and the army's coming after them now, they complain and they say, oh, we're gonna die here. God wasn't like, oh no, what am I gonna do? He goes, no, I got this. I brought you here intentionally. Now watch this. I part the sea. That was their journey through the wilderness. They kept thinking that God somehow had led them to a dead end, and then God would come through and fight for them and deliver them. We have this story so we know that this is still how God operates. We are writing our stories today. He is still leading us, leading our hearts out of Egypt, an exodus of our hearts into freedom, into life, into abundance. That's the God that we serve, and that's who we're celebrating today in the new year. So here's your assignment on your way out. Please take your map and leave it on your seat. Don't worry, we'll throw it away. Go out with a guide. Will you do that? Go out with one who's going to guide us in the new year. Okay, God bless. We'll see you back here next Sunday.